So we'll get started. So thank you everybody for joining in. If you don't know, this is my name is Uzair Iqbal. I'm the host of What Are You Made Of? And I started this series called the Idea Series, where I talk to companies that have made products out of repurposed materials, upcycled materials, or just anything else that was initially waste, and now they're putting it into a product. So today we have Lynn Haughton. Hello, Lynn.
Hi.
Hi. She is the founder of the Upcycle Movement based out of Ireland. And the company caught my eye because they make uh, coin pouches out of upcycled wetsuits. So I'm not a swimmer at all. I don't think I've ever worn a wetsuit, but let alone think about what happens if you recycle or upcycle it. So when I
Yeah.
came across this was a perfect idea that I wanted to showcase on my small platform, and then we worked it out, and now we have Lynn over here. How's your day going so far, besides the technical difficulties that we
Yeah,
had
well,
so far?
I was just going to say, apart from that very stressful 15 minutes or whatever, no
We
good.
got to get our nerves going, right?
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah.
shattered at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
no, it's brilliant that we could do this. And like I said to you, I'm so delighted to be able to talk to you about this as well.
sure.
And glad that you're
So,
willing to listen to me.
yes, I'm glad that you were able to make it. I want to tell people that you're an
Thanks.
artist, you're a designer, you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, you're a speaker, you've done a bunch of uh, educational events regarding the wetsuits that are about. So first, before we get into the product side of it, I want to talk about a little bit of the inspiration that you had to come up with Upcycle Movement. It was something in regards to the tsunami that happened in 2004, and you received a bag. Am I
Yeah,
right?
yeah, well, kind of. My brother gave me a Christmas present in 2005, Christmas 2005, and it was this bag which I have. It's a bit of a show and tell here tonight as well.
Yeah.
But I still have the bag, so it's this bag here, and it's made from tsunami relief rescue tents. So it's a canvas, and it's made from the tents that I suppose people were sheltering in after the tsunami in Sri Lanka. And my brother gave it to me, and when he gave it to me, it says on this, it says on it, if you can see, it
Yes.
says, "We've moved on, help us carry our tents."
Mhm.
And it was made by widows, basically, who had, I suppose, lost, their family, their livelihoods or whatever, due to the tsunami, and had seen an opportunity in the tents to use the material after they no longer needed them and repurpose them into something else, make money, help them move on to the next stage of their life. And when I got that bag, I was just so inspired. I just thought it was fantastic, and it really opened my eyes to what you can do with stuff. I've always been repurposing things as a kid, like in school you make things out of old lollipops and that sort of stuff. And I was always creative and always looking for things in my dad's shed to make things from. But when I got that bag, it kind of opened my eyes to, how important it is actually to just use what we already have,
Mhm.
instead of constantly taking resources to make new things. We already have loads of stuff.
Exactly.
So, on three different levels, I suppose, environmentally, socially, and economically, it just made sense. So that's when so the bag kind of was the catalyst, I suppose, to looking at things in a different way and in a more business-like way as well.
Gotcha. Okay. That's actually pretty cool. I remember how big of a tsunami it was, even though I was only 11 years old at the time.
Yeah,
And and this is upcycling movement is something like you said, Amy, it's been going on for a while, and people are really now starting
oh
to
yeah,
come up with like the business model behind it, right? That we don't need to be trashing everything that we make because and I've personally worked in the recycling sector here locally, and I've realized that it's just, I mean, we're making too much trash at one point, right? It's all got to
yeah,
go somewhere. And you
exactly.
had
And
a
I think,
great, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go on. No, I was just going to say, I think that where it ultimately ends up is never usually thought about, and that needs
Exactly.
to be thought more, and that's more to do with circular design, circular economy, and thinking about the whole lifespan of something. Um, so whereas, yeah, what I do, I'm taking waste, which should never really be wasted in the first place, but I'm taking
Mhm.
it and trying to extend its life for as long as possible. But yeah, things are designed just to make a profit, and so there's something kind of wrong with the system there.
Exactly. And then you had this great quote that I saw on your website. It's called, "It's only waste if we waste its potential." So that is a great mindset to have when we're looking at things to just dispose of all the time. And then you're right, we don't really think of what happens where it ends up. And there's almost always this magic fairy that comes in and picks up our garbage or recycling, and then we don't think about it. So I want to ask this too: why Ireland? Why wetsuits of all the things? I'm guessing.
Well, Ireland, Ireland, because I'm from here and I live here, so that's why. But so yeah, I'm from Dublin. I'm from Dublin in Ireland, but I'm actually living in Wexford, which is down the southeast coast at the moment. And why wetsuit is because I suppose, as I said before, I've always been upcycling different materials and mainly textiles. And then I used to live on a lake activity centre here in Ireland. And one of the things, like a bit of an issue for them every year, was what to do with old wetsuits, because the water here in Ireland is never particularly warm, no matter what time of year it is. And we go through an awful lot of wetsuits, whether it's surfing or kayaking or whatever it is you're doing on the water. So anyway, this lake activity centre, they sort of propositioned me, I suppose, and asked me, like, I'm always upcycling materials. Is there anything can I come up with an idea for them? So that's when I realised that there was an issue, and not just an issue in Ireland, but an issue kind of globally as to what to do with wetsuits, because neoprene isn't easily recyclable at all because it's a composite material, meaning that it's made up of more than one component, and it's petroleum based. So I suppose its making is, dangerous, or not dangerous, but like harmful to the environment as it is. So but then once it's such an amazing material, so once it's made, it can actually last literally forever. So why not continue on the lifespan of it as much as possible? So if it can't be a wetsuit, it can be a million other things, So that's when my eyes were open to that it was an issue, and I realized that it was a material I could start to work with and try, trial and error. So yeah, that's how it kind of came about that way.
So I imagine it's not an easy material to kind of put together and have like sewing it into a coin pouch, among other things there that you started making too. So what were sort of some of the technical challenges that you came across working with a material like that?
Well, when I first was asked if there was something I could do with it, I got a bag of old stinky wetsuits, and I was like, I don't know if I can do anything with these. But anyway, obviously I washed them and dried them and all that, and started cutting them up, which is a challenge in itself because it's so thick, and I didn't have a proper sewing machine at the time, so I was just hand sewing it, which was an absolute nightmare because it's so thick and tough. And so I just had a handful of blisters, basically, was the only productive thing out of it. But then later on, when I started really looking more into the problem, and that it was a problem as to what to do with wetsuits, I decided I'd invest in a sewing machine that would tackle them. And that in itself was actually a bit of a challenge to find one that would work. So kind of just from there, really. Just kind of a lot of trial and error.
About from there, yeah. And then I saw on your website, it's not just a coin pouch, right? You started making other things there as well.
Oh, yeah, no, gosh, there's lots of things. You said to bring props, so I have a few things here. Now the coin pouch, sorry, I'm not very professional. I don't have everything set up properly. This is the coin pouch you're talking about. So it's just a little purse, really, but it fits a whole multitude of things. And then I do bigger things like bags.
Oh wow!
So
neat.
That's a handbag, and it's got marine rope, keeping it sort of in the whole marine theme. And then also the zip is from a wetsuit as well, because the zips are often things that go a lot in wetsuits, and there's such great, like they're huge zips, so they're perfect for a handbag. What else do I have this. Well, sorry, not very good. But this is a laptop sleeve.
Okay.
So basically, the idea is that you open it up and you can sit your laptop here, and then use the open sleeve or open flap as a mouse pad. Because mouse pads are actually often made of green anyway, so I wanted to incorporate that idea. Oh, and sorry. A yoga mat strap as well, which is, I think, one of my favorites.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's really soft and nice to wear, you know, if you're bare skin or whatever. And it's stretchy, so it goes over lots of different size mats. And also I have a little pocket on the inside of it because personally I love to do yoga outside, so the only thing I need is my car key, or maybe, you know, if you're going to yoga class you need a couple of coins or something to pay for it. But
gotcha. And I'm seeing the comments right now from Kanan. He's saying, you know, neoprene laptop sleeves sell like crazy. That's a pretty good repurposing idea. And I want to kind of bring attention to one thing that you did that was really neat, and you pay attention to the whole concept of upcycling, not just from the perspective of creating or upcycling wetsuits, but the tag that you're putting on there too. I read that you're using fishing lines that are rescued from the beaches as well to kind of tie it in there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I do, yeah, and I have a prop. So often when I'm walking on the beach, I'll come across things like this. So you can kind of see there's bits of sticks and things still in there, but they're all tangled up, and it's just fishing line that is either washed up or has just been discarded on the beach itself. And so I use those. I just kind of clean them up, use them to attach the little tag on it. So each item has this tag, which has a little bit about what we do and why we do it on the back. And it also says where it came from. So, because I would get wetsuits from different surf schools, activity centres, you know, dive schools, things like that. So it's nice to acknowledge as well where it's come from. People who buy it then can be part of the story. So yeah, so fishing line is incorporated, and another reason why it is because 10% of profits from the collection go to Seal Rescue Ireland, who are a charity organisation here in Ireland, and they rescue gorgeous seal pups from all around the coast.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're the only seal rescue centre in the Republic of Ireland, so they're pretty busy. I think it's like 7,000 kilometres of coast or something that they rescue seals from. But a lot of the time the seals come in and they are wrapped up, entangled in fishing line and things like that. So, I mean, obviously if I'm on the beach I'll pick it up anyway, but it's nice, sort of, it's a bit of a nod to the fact that we help support them with what we do as well, and we're using it.
Exactly, and that's one of the social impacts of the product that you're making that I want to talk about is, so it's not just raising awareness about the wetsuits that end up, but then incorporating the fishing line. We also get understanding that how it affects seals too. And I've been seeing a video recently where, you know, a seal is going by, and then it has a net stuck in him. Kind of like a hoop. So a person just comes in and cuts it off, and then you can see the seal looking back and just saying, "Oh, thank you, you did that. You know, I've been stuck in here for a while." And these are issues that we. I mean, I can say I don't come across seals in San Antonio, Texas. I'm in the middle of Texas, and there's, like, the nearest beach is 2 hours away. So that's where the global understanding. Yeah, and what I love about this project is that, I mean, the product that we're getting an awareness about the impact of what happens when you throw these products away, but at the same time we're understanding where it's made from. Most of the time, I mean, we're buying clothes or anything like that, it's just made in China, and you just don't understand what is the environment there. So I love the fact that, you know, you're Irish and then you base it out of Ireland too, and then we get to sort of have a story that we can tell people too. It's like, hey, you know, it's not just wetsuits that I got, and then they got upcycled, and then that's it. But it's more like the impact that it's creating too. And I understand that you volunteer there as well.
Yeah, and that's how I got involved with them in the first place. My New Year's resolution for 2018 was to do something I've never done before or learn something that I don't know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the SEAL Rescue Centre are only about half an hour away from where I live, and I knew that they were there, but I didn't know anything about what they did. And actually, I was a little bit afraid of seals before I was involved, because you know you'd be kayaking or something, they'd lurk up and you'd be like, oh. But anyway, I started volunteering there. I think it was for 4 hours a week for about 3 or 4 months. But during that time, I was also developing and working on the Neo collection, which is the name of the collection of wetsuit products. And I suppose just during my time there, I realized how much work they do, but not just rescuing seals, but also everything they do in order to make sure that the sea is a healthy sea and the environment, because the environment and the sea are obviously so interconnected. So we have a healthy land, we have a healthy sea, and vice versa. So they do an awful lot of tree planting and, you know, beach cleanups and all these sorts of initiatives, and they're just a really good group of people doing amazing work. So without a doubt, I wanted to support them. You know, if I'm running a business and it's making any money at all, I definitely want to put it towards something that for me is value, and that's like, look, protecting the future and the environment is value. So.
Exactly. So and we have a question from Farah here too, and she's asking, what's the sort of feedback that you've gotten from partnering with Sea Rescue, or just people in general when they say, hey, you know, that's neat, it's made out of wetsuits, and I never thought of that kind of a concept.
Yeah, well, it's really positive, and I think people almost think, you know, jeepers, why haven't I thought of that before? Because it's so obvious then, almost in a way, after you realize. And that's exactly what happened to me when I got that bag I was talking about earlier from Tsunami Relief Rescue Tents. And I suppose that's my absolute mission, and one of the reasons why I'm making products out of something that's discarded, because I was so inspired by that bag, and if I can sort of pass on that inspiration in a domino effect, maybe, and then it goes on from there. I mean, I think it's, you know, there's so many bags and they all have the same function, to carry something, but to have a deeper meaning and more of a story is so powerful, and it can be so powerful if you kind of question it a little bit more, you know?
And that's the narrative that I wanted to really people to understand, that when you're buying a product too, it just doesn't have an effect on your pocket. You can get something cheap, or you can have something that is really not just it's long lasting, but it's gonna really help the environment and make an impact on the community. And I understand with you work with activity centers and surf schools, so where people can come in and drop off the wetsuits, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was always thinking that, hey, you just have this whole supply of the wetsuits, but I'm not a surfer, and so I didn't think that the connection of working with activity centers and surf schools. So that's actually really neat that you're making local partnerships all around.
And it's amazing because, as I said, it is such an issue for them, because they're, you know, they're obviously so connected to the environment. That's their work, that's what they're doing, and that's what they're enjoying, and they're so connected to it, and they don't want to harm it, they don't want to landfill them. And here in Ireland, there was no other option. And I know it's similar across the world, really, but so yeah, I think they were just as glad to have somewhere to put them than I was to get them. So it was kind of win-win.
So was it about the community when you were telling them that, hey, I have this business and then I can upcycle all the wetsuits? Like you said, you know, you're usually getting this sort of a reaction like, hey, you know, this was obvious. Why didn't I think of this before? Are there any reactions where people just didn't understand why this is going on, and you kind of like had to put that in perspective, the amount of these suits that can end up in the ocean and it can harm the wildlife? Like, is there any of that negative reaction too?
Yeah, good question. To be honest, so I launched the Neo collection in, I think it was the middle of 2018, or maybe it was the start, I can't remember, it was 2018 sometime anyway. And I think at that time, there was a whole mindset shift anyway happening. So to be honest, with the Neo collection, there has just been a really great reaction, and people have been really supportive of it. But before that, because I started the Upcycle Movement in 2012, and I was doing lots of different projects and lots of different things, and I think the mindset wasn't where it is now in terms of sustainability in the general public. And so it kind of took me an awful long time to get my feet off the ground and get to, I suppose, what I'm doing now. Because people almost didn't get it. It was sometimes it was like, oh, that's a lovely hobby or craft or project, you know, but I was determined to make sure that it was more of a viable business. So, I think in the last couple of years, it's been more of a positive reaction than prior to that.
So you've talked about creating this and turning it into a business. So what are your plans for taking this business further? And then how does an average person, someone like me in Texas or Florida or just anywhere else in the world too, how can they go about supporting that? I mean, you have a website as well, right?
Yeah, I do. The website's theupcyclemovement.com. And I would say, well, I'm just an average person as well. And I suppose I started out just literally doing it because I really felt passionate about it and wanted to. I've never been trained in any of this. I just was kind of like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody can do that. So, and I think anybody should do that. Yeah. But in terms of supporting it, yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to buy something, but shares, and if you have bought something in the past, you know, sharing an image of it in use is so helpful for a small business, or reviews, things like that. And I can't remember the first part of your question. So it was 3 questions there.
So it was, how do you take this business a step further from what it is?
What's
right
next? Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose in the immediate next, I have a few more products to launch in the Neo collection, which will hopefully be launching in the next couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about those.
Nice.
And then I have another couple of collections coming as well, so they're focusing on different problematic materials, not wetsuits, but just different. So I'll be launching them by the end of the year as well. And then I suppose looking forward beyond that, I would absolutely love to sort of replicate what I'm doing and you know, have different people doing what I'm doing in different parts of the world, and sort of establish it as a social enterprise that way. So just replicate it, literally what I'm doing, just in different little pockets.
So, and I understand that you do workshops as well?
Yeah, I do, yeah. So I think education is so important. I mean, anyone who understands the trajectory, I suppose, that we're on environmentally and with the climate crisis, there's no more need for an incentive, you know, to buy or support a business or this sort of sustainable future. So education is really the key point. But yeah, I do a lot of workshops with schools, not currently because obviously
with coronavirus.
Yeah. But yeah, generally do workshops with schools and at different businesses and community events and festivals and things like that. So it's either a talk just talking about, you know, making a business out of a waste material, or looking at waste material as a business opportunity, finding opportunities in waste, and also making things. So I would have things pre-prepped and talk about what I do. So it's kind of to inspire and empower and encourage action.
Mm-hmm. So we have another question from the crowd too, from Sikis.z, Uzair, and he's asking, what other materials do you plan to upcycle in the future? I'm guessing that's secret right now until
no, not necessarily. Yeah, okay. My next 2 collections that are coming out, one is, it's basically fashion. So clothes. I mean, 90% of textiles here in Ireland anyway, that you donate to a charity shop are typically actually exported, landfilled, or incinerated, which is a huge amount. And a lot of those materials are perfectly reusable, you know, for repurposing and things. So the first collection is repurposing those materials, so old clothes basically. And the other one is more outdoors activity based materials like kites from kite surfing and boat sails and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're really thinking out of the box on here. I love the fact that you're branching out of the wetsuits as well. And I saw on your website that you've done a couple of commission work. One was with this huge company and Siemens, and it was the tarp covers for the wind turbine blades that are used in transportation, right?
I actually thought I had it as my show and tell, but I don't have it with me. It's downstairs. But anyway, so basically they are installing wind farms here in Ireland, and the turbines themselves are transported and protected and wrapped in this tarp to keep them clean and protected. But then it's just discarded. There isn't another use for it. So, and there's health and safety and things like that come into it. So yeah, so they asked me would I be able to come up with something, and something for a conference that they were having. It was the Irish Wind Energy Association conference. And usually at a conference you turn up and there's a bag and it's got full of promotional items and things. So they kind of wanted me to design a bag which was the promotional item and it had nothing in it. So it spoke for itself to say, look, we're reusing this material. We always want to do better. We have this material and it's amazing material. It's going to be a bag that people have forever, basically. So I designed this bag, and all the delegates at the conference were given one, which was amazing, and it went down really well. And I think that that's really important. I think big companies and brands like that who have power, we'll say, should collaborate with smaller designers like myself, or people who are innovative and visionary, because I think that's a really powerful combination for moving forward. So
I love that.
I'd love to do more of that for sure.
That was actually very neat because I've been part of conferences that are specifically recycling organizations. And when I go there, you get a canvas bag, and it's made like super cheap material, made in China somewhere. And, you stuff it with a whole bunch of brochures and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't need that. And why, right? As even in the recycling organization, I was wondering, why are we not paying attention to this? And I'm glad an international company got to collaborate with you, and that you created something that's truly long lasting, right?
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's the beauty of it too. It's not just a promotional item for the event and then it's gone, it's no purpose after it. It's actually a really good bag that you're going to have for a long time. And hopefully, again, as I come back to the other bag, kind of when you pick it up, remember, like, oh yeah, that's it. That company's really forward thinking, and all that. So
exactly, and people get to talk about that experience too, and then that product, since it's gonna last longer, that story goes with it. I mean, I have a whole bunch of just free bags that I've almost always gotten, and I forget what they were about. But if I had actually gotten one of those and I was at that conference, oh, you best believe I would be talking about it forever. Just like, hey, have you seen what's going on right here?
Yeah.
And then another one was that you did. It was for a company's headquarters where they needed seats that were made out of slings.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. They didn't come to me really with a specific thing. They came to me with a specific material to upcycle, but not a project as such. So they had all these slings, which they're lifting slings, and they're plastic material, and for health and safety reasons, they can only really be used once and then discarded. So unfortunately, in the construction industry, there's a whole load of these that happens to. So they were wondering, is there anything else that we could do? And so they challenged me on it. And they were thinking of something for their own office, their foyer, so that it's something when people walk in, it's a talking point and sort of an introduction to, that they want to do better as well. They're always thinking better. So so we came up with ideas for the foyer, basically. So we had a little sort of recycle bin or umbrella stand type thing, a bench, and what was the other thing? Oh yeah, like a little stool. So I just wove them together. Yeah. And it was, but I love that. Like, I love getting a challenge of a material that you're kind of handed and you're like, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
And then,
And
yeah.
And I want to tell our viewers too that these designs that we're talking about too, they're all on the website. Do go, please check it out, because these are the things that I mean, I'm knee deep in the recycling movement, and I never thought of what they can be upcycled into. So those are like, I mean, I'm a visual person, so I'm glad that you put up the pictures too, so I
Yeah.
can understand it that way.
Yeah.
And one thing, I mean, that we're just all sort of going through right now is the coronavirus pandemic. So I'm interested how just the pandemic itself has affected what you do right now.
Yeah, well, another aspect, I suppose, of what I do is, especially throughout summer, is an awful lot of festivals and events. So I would design maybe installations and things like that for festivals out of waste materials. So I had an awful lot of those lined up this summer, and different workshops and things like that. So obviously all of those are cancelled, or hopefully just postponed till a better time. But so that was an instant sort of put off. Then the shop, the online shop, I kept it going for a little while at the start, but sales did drop, and I think people were just being cautious, you know. So I ended up just with my own personal situation. I had to sort of look after family members. So I just took it as an opportunity to put things on pause myself as well, and focus on family members throughout the last few months. But yeah, but I mean, it's definitely a tough time for small business, you know. But hopefully, I know it's not the same in America at the moment, but hopefully things start to pick up. It's starting to pick up a little bit here.
I hope so here too. I know San
Yeah.
Antonio was doing good in the beginning, but now that we've sort of flipped up, and it's got one of the highest cases. And I look at it that it's a safety, not just a public health issue, but a safety and like economic issue, that the more we take care of ourselves right now and stay away from those things, the faster we can open. And because the small business like yours are the backbone of how we work. It's not the multinational companies that are going to come and rescue. So I understand what you're going through, and I hope in Ireland it's hopefully getting much better than how it is.
Yeah, it is at the moment, but I think there's definitely, I mean, obviously there's an air of nervousness as well. We're opening up in phases, and the next phase is next Monday, I think it is. So more things will be opened up then. But I mean, yeah. Anyway, I do think that people have started to look at small businesses in a different way as well, maybe, and are starting to appreciate what they offer. And it is sort of a time for a shift towards maybe a more sustainable path and circular economy as well. So it's given people time to reflect a little bit, I think.
So keeping that in mind, you mentioned circular economy, and that's how sort of the path that you're going. That's how you designed your business too. Coming up with this circular model, it's not an easy thing to do right now, because there's not a lot of supply chains that are set up this way too. Obviously, it has its benefits. When we do it, we're creating much more jobs and keeping things out of the landfill. So in the process of making stuff out of wetsuits, what was the most challenging aspect? And the second part of that, what is the one moment or aspect that you're really proud of since you've started this?
Ooh,
a challenge and a proud moment. Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
So a challenge that you came across and a proud moment.
I think at the start, you know, a big challenge for me was that, and going actually before the wetsuits, was I initially sort of went looking for funding and supports and investments, and because I had, you know, such a big vision that I wanted to achieve, and I thought that was the only way to do it. And unfortunately, I got loads of knockbacks, and which is quite deflating, you know. But I think it was at a different time as well. People weren't really on board with it, maybe a little bit too early or something. But that challenge sort of almost, I think, made things stronger, because I really got good at bootstrapping and doing things, you know, in the most simplest form, and moving forward just as I could, and growing really slowly and steadily. So I think that challenge has sort of, even though it was really tough at the time, I kind of was like, why does nobody understand the importance of this? It's actually benefited in the long run, because I do think that it's got a solid foundation, and to keep things simple is really important for sustainability. And you know, almost if you do go too big, it's really hard to keep it sustainable too. And what was your other question? What was the second part?
So first part being a challenge, and you answered it. And the second part being, what is the aspect or your proudest moment throughout this whole journey?
Oh yeah. I think, so last year I set myself a target to, because as I said, I support Sea Rescue Ireland, 10% of profits go towards them with the Neo collection. And I set myself a challenge to fund a kennel there for a seal. So basically you can fund a kennel for a full year. So it means that any seal that comes into that kennel is rehabilitated, and you get a little plaque that says, you know, who's supporting that kennel and that. And I thought that that would be a really great goal to try and achieve. And something tangible as well, that people who support my business can also see that they're also supporting seals as well, because it's a little visual.
Nice.
So yeah, at the end of last year, I was able to reach that target and support a seal, or adopt a seal, not adopt a seal, but support a seal kennel, I suppose, for this year. So that was a really proud moment. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you for taking time to join me on my first episode, and you pretty much explained everything that I was going to try to come across was, so my page being, what are you made of? I really wanted to understand the product, what it's made of, as a business, what values that they're made of, and as a person, because you carry your values into the business, what are the beliefs that you're made of, right? So you hit all those three things. So thank you for doing that. And then you really did hit it home about the idea aspect.